Hello, all you beautiful thinkers and wanderers. Welcome to Think Out Loud with me. I'm Natalie P., and if life has taught me anything, curiosity saves lives, and the best conversations are the ones we don't script. Life's a big, beautiful, messy learning opportunity, and here in my space, well, we let the inside voices out so others can hear, relate, and create with new purpose. This is a space for questions, connection, and those deep, real human conversations that crack open new perspectives. So grab a seat, open your mind and your heart, and let's think out loud together.
Nope.
All right.
I can hear a wood chipper. How do I? I don't
City of
know.
Loveland. City of Loveland is out wood chipping, doing their job.
I don't know what to do about that. Well, we'll see if it causes an issue, but okay.
All right. We are live. And yeah, like I was saying, if any of this stuff goes crashing down, it's because it's held up by dish towels and piles of books. And it is beautifully messy because this is what we do today.
This is what we do.
We
This
do
is
it
how we show up.
anyway. We
Yes.
go on live because this is why we go on live. So another reason why I'm doing this, because you and I have been talking about having this conversation going on 4 months.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Been a little while.
Yeah.
And I have that type of conversation in terms of, oh my gosh, this is a perfect conversation for my podcast. I have that way too often. And so instead of trying to chase each other down, it going live in the moment and talking about what's going through our minds. That's what this entire thing has been about. It's not scripted. It's not planned. It's not rehearsed. It's messy, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
Are you on board with this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So I welcomed Emily to my room, my little Zoom room, my Instagram room. We're on all kinds of screens all around my face. I feel like a movie star. And I'm going to let her do some introducing of herself, just woven throughout the cast. I don't want to do that, as I've said in a previous cast. But we know each other from just pure energetic connection.
Mhm.
I think I laid eyeballs on you and thought, yep, energetically, like you just know when you know, right? And then when I found myself able to, actually interact with you, and then, I've experienced your work, I just was like, this is a real human being. And that's the type of people I like to think out loud with. So, not surprisingly, we go deep. When you have an energetic connection, you go deep really fast, and that's why it's so fun, right? So, we're here to talk about some pretty big, a pretty big topic. What it all kind of sits under is female autonomy, um, and um, and this concept of the female body. Um, I showed up in full fledged support of female autonomy. I do not have a bra on because they suck. They have always sucked, and nobody's got it right yet. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There's probably some that I have not tried. There's going to be one out there. I'm good, right? So help me out here, sister. Say something hi to everyone. Welcome to my room. Where does that even take you?
Yeah.
Hi. Think out loud with me.
Hello. Hi, friend. Okay, so we want to have this conversation. So if I don't know you yet, my name's Emily Tosoni, and Natalie and I met because I am an Instagram and business growth coach, but I want to give you a little bit more understanding of how this conversation that we're going to have, like where that comes from for me. So my background, I went to college and got a bachelor's degree in sports medicine, athletic training. For those that are unaware of, that's not physical therapist, that's not personal trainer. It is specifically injury identification, injury rehabilitation, strength, conditioning, training to return to your sport from an injury. So I had a lot of freedom as an athletic trainer to do more than just focus on the injury area that my athletes had. I didn't have to worry about how I was going to bill for insurance. I just got to, you come to me, you have an injury, I can do a full holistic, full body examination and then give you rehabilitative guidance. So,
Had you always wanted to do this? Like, can you just spend 3 quick seconds? Like, is this a lifelong passion? Because that's like deep. You don't just like, okay, this
decide
is,
to do that.
yeah.
Um, I was an athlete myself my whole childhood and young adulthood. And um, I don't know that I always knew. I always knew I wanted to work in healthcare in some way. I used to think I wanted to be an anesthesiologist at some point. I'm sure there were other ideas in there, but because I was a competitive high school athlete and I saw how the athletic trainers helped us, um, somehow that's, I think, how it came into my
Hmm.
vortex, into like
Hmm.
my area of knowing that it was a feasible career.
Hmm.
Um, but I was always fascinated with the human body.
Hmm.
And I didn't take any anatomy or physiology classes in high school. I honestly don't even know if it was offered at the high school I went to, but I I moved from Georgia to Montana to like do this. I could have done it anywhere else in the South, but I moved because Montana had a great program and I wanted to move to Montana. So what I really focused on with all of my athletes, no matter what their injury was core stabilization. So whether they were a male or female athlete, they were coming to me, they had a shoulder injury, they had a hip injury, they had a knee injury. You have to stabilize all movement by having core control. So I had kind of a mixture of core stabilization exercises that I incorporated into every rehabilitative protocol that I created for my athletes. So I was doing my undergrad, I was in like my early 20s. um, and I don't know about everyone else, but the conversation would come up with other women about sexuality, as far as who are you dating, what's going on, are all of the things
Hmm.
behind that conversation. And so I would get to know my athletes well, specifically my female athletes, and those conversations would come up because as an athletic trainer, you're like getting to know the athletes really well. They're in there all the time because they're rehabbing from a specific injury. So it's not like once a week for an hour, you're seeing them like every day. So I had some of my athletes, my female athletes, start to tell me, oh my God, like sex has gotten so much better and I enjoy it more. And I think I might have actually I think I might have actually reached climax. I don't think I've ever done that before. And these were all like anecdotal things, right? They were just conversations I was having with my athletes. But I started to think, okay, well, that makes sense where your pelvic floor is a part of your core. We're working on core stabilization. We're rehabilitating that whole complex, all the muscles that are a part of it. So it would also make sense that you would see an effect from that in other aspects of your life. So then when I felt comfortable enough, I just kind of started asking my athletes about this. And the other thing that I would notice, again, this was just my perception and my conversations, individual, with each of these people, each of these women, was that they also were starting to have more what I could see they were uh, what we would call self-efficacy. You could tell that their like feelings about themselves were also improving, not only because they were able to return to their sport and compete at that level, but there was something deeper happening there. So, but it was also intertwined with the other conversations I would have with friends outside of the athletic training realm about, like, I don't think I've ever climaxed. I don't even know what that feels like. I don't know how to ask. I don't know what to ask for. Is it okay for me to ask for certain things? Does it make me a slut? Is there something
Right.
wrong with me? And I grew up in the South, going to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. I was a leader in the youth group. So, like, these were not conversations or experiences I was having in high school at all. And I started to realize it wasn't just me. It wasn't just people that had grown up in communities and cultures like me. So many of my girlfriends, we were all having the same conversation. So that's kind of the foundation of what, like, my curiosity from my own conversations, my own friendships, my own, like, experiences, but also from a professional perspective of, like, this is intriguing, that if we look at and address it from this perspective, can we see changes? And as someone in a science field, we're always thinking about research. How can I, like, what can I do to figure out how can I create some, not always how can I create research, but, like, can I take this a step further and figure out how to implement in a way that will give me some sort of answer on a larger scale?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How was that for foundation?
That was beautiful. As I told you before we hit record, you are qualified.
Thanks.
No, you didn't. You didn't go. You are an Instagram and growth coach. But heck, if you don't know your business around this stuff. So, um, no, you did a wonderful job of explaining your way into this. And what I love is that you were the curiosity about it was just like, let me just keep poking. And that's how you do everything in your life.
100%.
And so one of the questions that went through my mind as you were talking and you started to answer it at the end was like, did you go into this having any kind of knowledge about your own female, anatomy or any kind of um, just awareness, or what was your level of awareness heading into this situation? There's obviously, you're curious because all of it is new and you're discovering, and I get the research part of it, but what's your baseline?
So, again, I grew up in the South. I am 41. So, a movie that was really popular was Fried Green Tomatoes. When I was, like, a movie that I just really loved as a young person. And I remember the scene. If you haven't seen the movie, this is not a spoiler alert, but also go watch the movie. Also read the book. Like, read the book. Read the book. The book is
Read
even
the
better than the movie. But anyway,
hashtag fried green tomatoes. I will add that
yes.
to the end of this.
I love Kathy Bates too. But there's a scene in there where, I don't know that I consciously felt connected to the character that Kathy Bates was, but there was a scene in there where they're, like, at a women's group, trying to figure out how to improve their marriages, and they get out a mirror and are told they have to look between their legs. They have to look at their vulvas. And there's, like, a level of discomfort for some of them, and I just remember watching that. I didn't feel uncomfortable. And I remember thinking, even at that time, and this was in the 90s when I was still probably in middle school or high school, like, we should all know what our anatomy looks like. We should know, we should be able, like, we should look. I remember being curious enough to then look at myself to know, what does it look like? It's just anatomy. It's just our bodies. And it was, I remember being very intrigued by that, like, what, what, why is there shame around looking at your physical body?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? It is just anatomy. And I will interject here and say I have an almost 7-year-old little boy, and I use anatomically correct terms for every part of the body, because I want to make sure that he knows for himself, but that he also knows how to respect everyone else and what their bodies are like, and that our bodies are all different,
Mhm.
that there are some similarities and there are lots of differences, and we respect all of that because we each have our own physical being. And to know as much as we can about our body and ourselves is so important. And if we don't feel comfortable exploring and knowing our body, how are we supposed to explore and know any other parts of ourselves that are deeper and more vulnerable?
And I would, yes, yes. And so it blipped across my peripheral, like you should throw in like a warning, a that we're talking about a topic that um is an adult like my knee-jerk reaction is to say this is an adult topic,
Yeah.
folks. So cover your ears, little ones. But that's actually why we want to keep talking about it, because and I want to reference the podcast that you sent me, and you're going to have to call out their names. I didn't get yeah, believe it or not, I'm not prepared for this. But they go into, these two young women are just super smart together, and I understand why you listen to their podcast. But they go into this, and they've done a full series on it, this concept around female autonomy, and they bring it all back down to just it's basics in sex, right? And that what I got out of it, and what I want to start with and transition to, is that where I've come to is that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the discomfort that I feel in my body right now talking about this with a fellow human.
Yes.
I'm going to start there,
Yep.
because the discomfort um, is I'm checking myself against all my past experiences, and all of those past experiences are were have foundations in my mom's experiences and my grandmother's experiences before that, and and so there's this unraveling that's going on of thousands
Yep.
of years. We live 100 years if we're lucky. add add a zero and then multiply by a few, and you've got how long this I'm going to say the patriarchal, they use words like patrilineage, I
Real
think was
lineage.
yeah,
Yeah.
um as just pure the facts of the matter. And that at 2000, 2500 years ago, at the turn of there was a pretty big shift in relationship between what had once been a very matriarchal culture,
Community focused.
community focused culture. And as agrarian, as we moved into agriculture, I can't believe I'm actually remembering this stuff,
You're doing
but
great.
that there was this massive transition into patriarchal, right? And then all of these things cascade from there. This isn't about smash the this or burn the bra that I don't have on. This is just stuff, right? That
Yeah.
I want to talk about. Now, it's uncomfortable stuff.
Yeah. Because
Thousands
we've
of
been
years.
told to be uncomfortable when we talk about it.
Yeah.
So the podcast itself is called The Reclamation Hour. Um, and the episode that Natalie's talking about is called Plows,
Yes.
Liberty, and Patriarchy. And I want to like give an asterisk here. If you hear the word patriarchy and it makes you like cringe and feel uncomfortable, that's okay, because it's a word that is used in a lot of different contexts and doesn't fully represent. A lot of people have a negative connotation about patriarchy. It's just so we're talking about it, and what they talk about in this podcast, like Natalie mentioned, is just the facts of like there used to be more of a matrilineage kind of passing of the ownership of things, and then it transitioned to patrilineage, which is the passing of down the patriarchal the patriarch side, which is the men. That's just historical fact. It's not to say right or wrong. But what we, without like diving too much into all of the past, because there's so much to know and we can't cover all that. That's definitely not my area of expertise. We want you to know the information is there. I would definitely recommend you go listen to as much of that podcast. Like all the episodes are wonderful, but what we see in modern day, what we see now is that it is still happening that there's a lot of shame passed on to women for the desires we feel in our bodies. And I was born in the 80s, growing up in the 90s. I also feel like I grew up in the culture of like, as a woman, be seen and not heard. Don't create disruptions. Don't ruffle any feathers. I never fit into that box. So I was always called difficult. But I was also very quiet. But I remember my dad saying things like, and this is just it's not like a cut at my dad. This is just who he was based off of how he was raised. Like, oh, are you ever going to be able to find a man to handle you? And, these types of phrases that in effect shame us for taking up space, for speaking, for being, I don't want to say for being open-minded, but just for kind of taking up more space than people are comfortable with us doing. And when I think back on it, so again, if you like incorporate everything that I learned while I was working as an athletic trainer in my internship, and then once I was certified and working out in the high school and collegiate settings, and I take that information and I look back, and really I think we can all reference this. Any of us who went through public education and had the public education form of sex education, there's a lot of information, or at least there was in the 90s when I went through it, that reminds little boys, little boys, it's totally normal. You're going to have wet dreams. You're going to want to touch yourself. This will happen. All those things are normal. It's like repeated over and over. Little boys, it's normal. It's normal. You hear, no one in the sex ed class said, hey, little girls, it's normal that you're going to want to touch yourself. It's normal that you'll do things that feel good. And no one says that to little girls in sex education. It is very sterile. I don't even really remember learning about it, except for like, don't have sex because you'll get pregnant.
It's just inappropriate, Emily.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate.
Right. Which is,
right?
Yeah.
That's the voice that comes through that sits with my discomfort.
Yep.
Where my discomfort comes from is there's a voice that says, and I can hear it. I can imagine. I'm thinking of, what we do when we go live, we think of the person, oh my gosh, if this person watches this, I'm going to be just mortified, whatever story we've got in our head. Right.
Yep. It's true.
And I think about that with this, like my discomfort comes from just that knowing that the discomfort becomes a knowing that this needs to just be. It's turned into a tickle means go, means dig. A tickle means dig. I was looking for my words. I know Mercury's not still in retrograde. I understand that much, but I don't have an excuse anymore. Thanks for framing up like the gals that are just they really are smart. I think one of her name is Alexandra, and then the other one, the reclamation hour. And just where we were going with this when we originally connected on it was this concept of living in a full body and having a relationship with your body that tells you how you need to release energy, how you need to get energy. It tells you it has a pharmacy inside that is, pumping out like absolutely every chemical that you could possibly need if you are truly in tune with the possibilities of this human machine, and that this discomfort has to be had when we are thinking about things in the scope of whole human living. Um, the relatives that are probably not listening to this are telling me I'm inappropriate, but they've all felt what I'm talking about in some shape
Yeah.
or form. They recognize what I'm talking about. And that's okay, because the curiosity is still there, and I'm okay with that. This is a sandbox I want to play in. I want to be uncomfortable in these kind of conversations. So thank you for having them with me.
Yeah. I think it's so important. Okay. If you are someone that does feel discomfort, so like if you're tapping in with us here, whether you're live or you're listening to the recording and you're like, oh, these conversations make me feel uncomfortable too. Don't shame yourself for that. And also dive a little deeper in,
Mm-hmm.
because all that we're really talking about is awareness.
Yep.
Like really it comes down to an awareness and an understanding that there is this subconscious shame that really was given to little girls. And, I'm not exactly sure what that looks like now, how I don't really know what sex education looks like now. I do understand that folks that subscribe to different religions don't want there to be actual sex education in schools because they're afraid that it will turn us all into raging sexual wild animals, which
Mhm.
I think that's a misunderstanding. When we know ourselves better, um, it's empowering so that we can make better decisions with the information we have. So if you feel uncomfortable hearing this conversation, thinking about your own experiences, that's okay. Now, I want to I want to add in then. So I finished my undergrad. I worked at a high school for a little while, and then I ended up working back in the collegiate setting with collegiate athletes as an athletic trainer while I was in graduate school. And I did a bit of a transition. My graduate studies were in community health, which I always like to explain as kind of like a bridge between public health and social work. And we had I can't remember the name of the class, but every Friday, those of us that were in community health and exercise science, we were under the same umbrella where I went to school. We had a class the first semester of each year, and you had to present a topic that you might be interested in doing research on, whether it was while you were doing your master's or if you did PhD studies. So I took all of this curiosity, all of this knowledge, everything I had learned from the young adult athletes that I had worked with, from my own experiences, from conversations with friends, and I wrote a proposal to do an interdisciplinary PhD in basically female climax. And so I did all this research, and I presented this to this committee of exercise scientists and community health professionals. And what I found in the research, so this was in 2010, there was a lot of research on the psychological interventions. So women who can't reach climax, who struggle with how they feel about their body, in their relationships, all of those things, whether it's a relationship with themselves or with a partner, whatever that looks like. There were studies on psychological interventions. Okay, you go to a therapist, you do CBT, you do, any of these different forms of therapy. And then there were also studies on physiological interventions, which usually most of the research was around surgical interventions. So doing some sort of surgical cutting into the pelvic floor to try and tighten it up. Um, and my proposal was, why is there no research on both? And why is there no real research? There is some research now But at the time, I was like, why is there no real research about the physiological intervention of just rehabilitate, like learning how to use your pelvic floor, learning about your core, like learning more about your body and how to basically what I had done with my athletes, like how, like, let me have some people that I can give them this set of exercises for core strengthening and conditioning. And then also let's find the mental health professionals that are the right fit. And let's do both and let's see what happens, because all the research that existed showed that when women feel more confident in their bodies, when they can reach climax on their own and or with a partner, it increases their self-efficacy, and there's a ripple effect into the relationships of every other part of their life, not just who they are in an intimate relationship with, but with how things go at work, how things are with their kids, how things are with the parents that they know at school, every part of their life, their self-efficacy improves. And if you're like, self-efficacy, self-esteem are a little bit different. Self-efficacy is the belief that you can succeed at a task or achieve a goal. It's a key factor when we talk about motivation and resilience, which is, it's incredible to think that if we just, instead of shaming women for being curious about their bodies and the relationships they can have with others and with themselves with their body, if we just like decrease that shame and instead encouraged it, that's their self, every like woman, every person who identifies as a woman, your self-efficacy improves, and that impacts everyone around you. Everyone, not just you, everyone.
Not just you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It literally impacts the ripple. It's just like the like when a butterfly flaps its wings, it can, turn into like,
create a tsunami and
yes,
yeah.
it's a very similar. So I was like, what if we teach women how to climax? How will that impact the world? Like,
That's the problem, right? Let's just make it that. Say it what it is. Why can't it just be that?
I mean,
I
that was,
I need, you have. Like that's a perfect business relationship, right? But giggling aside, like there's serious consequences of not having these types of connections with your body. And we've been living in the consequences of not having these connections with our body and and this is not just for identify a female. This is not that. This is humanity being connected to their body and being engaged with all of the things that make them go. And I think about when you're describing, this ripple effect of what it means for me to have a healthy sexual like relationship with myself, with my partner, with my family, like in terms of like the relationship I have with my son around his own like all of it, the health of all of it. I go to the shame factor, and I think of women where they cut, the movie script has them coming out all disheveled and, and they're like glowing and they just stop. Oh my God, like what happened to me? And the man comes out like he's fired, like, okay, I'm ready to go. Right. Like there's even that this might even make me dumb when in fact this makes me magical. And the very presence of our body's ability to just like have these feelings, physical feelings, emotional feelings, spiritual feelings all together, that we've done anything to shame that. Talk about the consequences. What do we risk if we don't have conversations around this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most important things is whether we talk about it or not, we're going to have we're going to feel desires in our body. And if we've been taught that those desires make us nasty or slutty or any of these other negative terms that have been created for women specifically, just for women, it creates this subconscious loop that we question everything about what we think and believe about ourselves. And then we question everything that we desire, whether it's sexual or anything else, whether it's, to achieve success in other areas of life, to, whatever it is. We subconsciously start to question everything about what we think because we've been told that we're hysterical, we're crazy, we have not been, no one made it okay that we would feel these things. Now, how I have seen that play out, so I've been coaching women in business now for 12 years, teaching women how to grow businesses. And all 12 of those years, part of growing a business with the formats, the type of business owners that I've worked with, it requires that you show yourself. It can't just be the logo behind your business. It can't just be, you have to interject yourself into your business. And what I have found is that women are very uncomfortable talking about themselves and what they know and how they can help. And it's like a fear, the conversation of imposter syndrome always comes up. But then I always think of it from like, okay, but you are confident enough that you started your own business. You know your shit well enough that you started your own business. So I understand kind of, but also imposter syndrome is something that we've been told we're gonna feel and that we like expect. All of these things become convoluted when really the issue is we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust that we know enough. We don't trust that we're smart enough. We don't trust that we can have the impact we think we can. We think we need to know more than we need to know. And there's so much research out there about this in other aspects, like in the business world, that, I don't remember the specific statistics, but that men are more likely to apply for jobs that they are underqualified for, and women will not even apply for jobs they're fully qualified for if there's like one thing they're missing. So, there could be lots of conversations about what causes all of this. My perception, and a lot of what the qualitative research out there will show, is that this can be linked back to, can we trust ourselves? Do we know enough? Can we take up space? Are we worthy? And whether we're conscious of those thoughts playing in our head or not, they are there because of those formative years and how we were taught to feel about our bodies. And if we can't trust our bodies, then we can't trust our brain and our thoughts and our feelings and our desires and our drive. And I think there are lots of different consequences for that. It also makes me think of, now I'm not, the movie, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Is that? Yeah.
I don't know that one registered with me necessarily, but.
Well, there's a part in it where Charlize Theron, I believe is. Anyway, the book is great too, but where she just like leaves her family. Like she leaves her husband and her kids and she like runs away to like, she rents a room right on the beach. I think the movie and the book takes place in Louisiana. And I think that's, if we don't address as women these underlying shame factors that we all carry, eventually there is a breaking point. Now in the movie and in the book, she comes back to her family, but she left. She needed a break. How many women do we know from our families, from stories, from history, that just couldn't take it anymore and left? And then we make up all sorts of stories about them, but like, is there a link back to this internal shame that we're given
Well, does it have
around?
to ever get it? Does it have to get to that point? I mean, it's just like crazy to me to think about, you know, getting to that point of, and that there are, you know, it's going to take some unraveling.
Yes.
I want to dip back just a second.
Okay.
You talked about um, formative years and what your experience was as a young woman, and I think about my own, um, born in the 70s, um, thinking about the things that I learned. And one of the biggest things that I learned, not even recently, but recently in terms of just my life, was the concept of going back into my timeline, right? Spending some really good quality time with the young Natalie that I was amidst all the things that were going on in my house. And some people are like, why would you ever want to do that? And, like how, or it's just too far out to think, that why would you do that? Why would you make an effort towards that? But I would say that some of the most valuable conversations I've had with that young Natalie are around, um, her body
Hmm.
and her love,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
um, and that and that that mm, the learning that I did as imprint that I had as a young woman, as a young girl, is not this isn't about blame or fault or anything. This was two parents, then that was their reality, and it mixed together and it made me. And in my curiosity, going back into that and looking at it, I talk to people about coming up a couple floors. Like, if you've ever been to a high rise in LA, you park underground, right? And you come out of the parking garage and you're in this like beehive underneath, right? It's like the parking garage. And you start slowly coming up out of it, right? Woo, 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 right? Rising. And you can get up a couple floors and they'll have a mezzanine and you can look down and you can see all the all over the place, right? But you can get a sense of where folks are congregating, where the hiccups are, where like the burn points are. And so when I come up a couple floors and look at my childhood and just the things that were going on, the dynamics that were going on, it helps me go in and even I'm going to tell you, lay down beside my little Natalie and hold her through some pretty confusing times,
Yeah.
and let her know that my mom and my dad were doing the best they could, and that I would come in to know my body. In fact, I've come in to know it very well, and I still have a lot to learn. But that one day I'm going to return home, and that then it will be about having um, conversations in rooms where people can listen in, and we start to tell truth even if our voice shakes, and we start to have these giggly because we're giggly because it's taboo. We were worried about getting, thrown out for what we're talking about.
Yeah.
What? Like,
Yeah.
that alone needs a really solid period behind it. Like, what? That alone blows my mind. Anyway, what do you wish your younger self had heard about the feminine, about female autonomy, about the feminine experience, the bodily experience, the dance between body and energy? Like, those are my words. Don't let me project all over you.
I mean, I think I think if there had just been an honest conversations about um, the way our bodies speak to us.
Mm. What do
Um,
you mean by that?
Again, this conversation around little boys that they're told, like, you're going to feel these things and these things will happen and it's normal and it's okay. And there's, it's giving credence to, like, this is the normal experience that you're going to have and it's okay. And I don't think that little girls receive that same validation about their bodies. And I think just having that kind of validation, for me at least, would have been, I don't know that it would have changed me then, but it would have made the path in my young adulthood and into through my 20s and my 30s and now into my 40s, it would have given me a level of understanding of myself that I wasn't able to really come to until, I mean, I think I've been on that journey since my mid 20s, but wouldn't it have been nice if I could have been on that journey starting at 12 or 13, like a full understanding of who I am and that these are the things I might feel. Of course, we're all different. Not everybody has the same drives or desires in any in any like concept or aspect of life. Um yeah, there's so many ways I feel like I could, because also, like, I feel as if we see this a little bit in the way diet culture, especially from the 90s, really impacted women and all the unraveling we're still having to do, and all the ways women don't trust their bodies in that way as well. Like, I feel like I have to have the conversation all the time. So I'm a personal trainer as well and a group fitness instructor. And every time I teach a class or work with a client, I always say, like, you need to eat. After class, you're going to be hungry. And that is literally your body telling you it needs fuel. You need to eat. Don't be duped into thinking that your body is tricking you. Like, you need to eat, because this is like what we've been told. Like, another big one is, oh, if you feel hungry, you're actually just thirsty. Just drink some water. Like, I could punch a hole through a brick wall every time I hear that. No, no, it is literally your body is speaking to you. It is a cue from you're hungry. You need food.
And
Eat.
we've been consistently told to ignore it, tamp it, tamp it, tamp it, tamp it. We got shit to do, Emily. I got shit to
Well,
do.
we got shit to do. And also, we haven't been taught to trust what our body tells us.
Mhm.
So we miss all these other cues that our bodies give us because we've, no one gave us the validation. It's okay. You're going to feel aroused. Of course you are.
Mhm.
Just like boys, you're just like
Your body
male
is
anatomy,
working.
like, you're
Yes.
going to feel aroused. There's no validation for that while you're in that developmental stage when that is starting to happen. And so then when you feel it, you're like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. So then you learn to not trust any of the cues your body gives you, which includes hunger cues, intuitive things. Like, all of these pieces get kind of um, muted because it has been ingrained in us societally that we can't trust ourselves because there's been no validation that what we feel is normal.
Right.
Okay. I want to, I told Natalie before we got on, I have all these books. I just, again, if any of these topics that we've discussed feel taboo, I would encourage you to take what does speak to you from this conversation. Um, if there are other parts that you just can't dive into for whatever reason, totally understand. But take what you can and investigate it.
Mhm.
If it gives you a feeling, then that's something to just, like, take some time to learn more about why you feel that way. Where do you feel it in your body? Explore that for yourself if that feels safe to do. I will say I've also been fortunate enough, my business life coach, who has now become a dear friend, who I've worked with for like 15 years, also really has guided me through a lot of this from like a leadership perspective. Like intuition is a leadership skill. So how can we tap back into that? And how can you like know your body better and where you feel things to help you with how you can help others with the things that you offer in your business. So like I've done a lot of work around this. So if you're at a starting place and you're hearing this conversation and it feels super overwhelming, take it one step at a time. So
Yeah.
the Reclamation Hour podcast is incredible. And I would encourage you to dive into that as you feel comfortable. Are you cool with me just like talking about a few of these books?
I'm totally fine. I want to give just one little quick part of context too, and that is again to we open this with that this, this discomfort is thousands of years embedded in us, and that here's the legit shit, you guys, that there's a reason why this is uncomfortable, that it was just like in the 80s that women were included in clinical trials
Legally and with their
legally
consent.
and with their consent. Pause on that for a minute. How were you even born?
I mean, I was born in 83.
So 3 years later, they were able to start legally looking at women's bodies in a clinical setting and saying, how is this pharmaceutical, or how is this um, treatment, or how is this, like, mind blowing. That was not that long ago, folks. And I mean, 1993, inclusion of women and minorities in clinical research that is funded by the government. Like, that was the year I graduated. So it's no wonder that these topics are uncomfortable. This is we're just coming into this awareness of who we are we've heard about it. We are hearing about equality. We're hearing about efficacy. We're hearing about all of these things. It's still very fresh.
Yeah.
And curiosity is the name of this game. Just even if you have to do it from a distance, stay curious about it. Stay curious about it. Go
Yeah.
ahead. You've got some books you want to share, and yeah, we'll land this plane because we could talk for like 2
I
days.
know. There's so many pieces to this. Like,
It's
I
a
mean,
big one.
there's a lot, there's so much to say about like how different countries and legislation and rules and how those are enforced. And I mean, so many, I think, was it just yesterday I posted that it wasn't until 1974 that women were able to like have their own checking accounts
Yeah.
and things without a man's permission, without a man's signature, without a man being like the overseer. I mean, that was when my mom graduated from college. Like, it's not like that was hundreds of years ago. Like, that was not that long ago. So, yes, we have to remember, although it feels like we've come very far, it just still wasn't that long ago. Yeah, it's like a tiny
But
blip.
it's like
It's so
itty
tiny.
bitty.
And that doesn't, I mean, and that's just talking about like, okay, well, that's when it was passed, but what about um people from minority communities?
Right.
I mean, there's
Just
so much
because it's
to dive in.
there, so many nuances, so many nuances. I
Ugh,
mean, and even just recently, we're hearing right now that it has nothing to do with the sperm. The egg selects. She shuts everybody else down. She chooses. So mind-blowing stuff on the daily.
yeah. Yeah, the intelligence of the reproductive organs that female bodies can have, like, it is it's incredible.
It's
Uh,
incredible.
okay. So, a few books that I have found really incredible. One is, it's called Cassandra Speaks.
Mm.
And it's When Women Are the Storytellers, the Human Story Changes. This is just a really fascinating one because it talks a lot about how most history was written, like actually written down by men. The stories from women about our historical understanding, women's stories were not included. And that is knowledge we need to be reminded of so that we can understand the perspective of what we are reading and learning about history.
What a
This
beautiful
one is,
perspective. Yes,
oh,
yes.
like, please get the Cassandra Speaks. This one
I'll
is
put all of
incredible.
this in our show notes for sure. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll send you the link to all these. This one came out in the 70s. This has become like a bit of a
Oh, I love this book. Yes.
a bit of a Bible for me. Women Who Run with the Wolves. Every woman needs to own this book.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, own it, read it. I have highlighted, underlined, earmarked. There's so much. Like, this could be a book you study, not just read. So,
Absolutely.
Women Who Run with the Wolves. Emily Nagoski has a few books. One is called Come As You Are, and then this is her most recent called Come Together. This one is more about the science of intimate relationships and long-term relationships, which I also think is a really important thing to consider when we're talking about intimacy and climax and all those things. But her other one is Come As You Are. So if you want more of like the scientific understanding of females, sex, those are incredible. And then this is also one that I'm like studying as I'm reading. This is the last one. On Our Best Behavior, The 7 Deadly Sins and the Price Women Pay to Be Good.
Mm,
This one is,
that's a doozy.
this is also,
Well, and that
just,
looks like one you have to have a pencil and a highlighter and a notebook next to you to just like,
I mean, truly, again, it's one that I've like highlighted and underlined. And
yeah,
my son is like, Mommy, you're writing in books. And I'm like, well, when you own them and they are
when you
yours
own them. Yeah.
and you want to like remember important things.
Yeah.
Um, but I do listen. Patriarchy, feminism, these words have been used to the point that most of us have a negative reaction when we hear them. What I really want everyone to walk away with,
Mm,
that if those words don't work for you, don't use them. But I think there's a deep opportunity to learn more about
mm,
history, to learn more about who we are by learning about what has happened in the past that has created the experience we have now by what surrounds us and what happens within us. And if you can think about it from that perspective, instead of these big, scary words that have been used to the point that we don't even really know what they mean anymore,
mm-hmm.
and dial it down to like, get to know yourself better by understanding
Yep.
things that have impacted where we are now. And I think that's important, no matter if you're a man or a woman, how you identify, who you are, the experiences you've had. Now, I will say the caveat to that is also do what is safe for you to do, and what you have the resources to do in diving into this. So if you're at a place in your life where like diving into this is not safe or something that you can't process without others to help you process, like, be curious about that with yourself and be honest with yourself and take it as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I appreciate being able to have this conversation and to share this passion that I have for, I guess the takeaway is when we feel like we can trust ourselves, things will change for every other aspect of our life.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to learn how to trust ourselves is to understand why we don't in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place to land. Yeah. I'm glad that we finally found time to do it. And
I
I
know.
think, well, because here's the thing. You show up with this same passion in every, this is who you are. And so showing, folks listening, watching live, what you care about and how you operate as a human. So if it's that how you do anything is how you do everything, you're not going, you're not jumping off the podcast with Natalie and heading out to go, I don't know, what would you go do, Emily, you crazy
No.
son of a bitch, you. I don't know what you would do, but you'd look cute and you'd put on a cool little filter and it would all just pop out. You just pop out, pop out, pop out, right? You just text and then I add text and then I add text. But for the reals, there is a level of commitment to information that I really appreciate about you, and responsible information, and that these conversations, yeah, they have to keep happening, and there has to be, I think, my breaking out of my shell was about finally, I need to have these conversations. Don't dare have it in the feed of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not for these types of conversations. You know where I want to go with this conversation? Right to the feed of LinkedIn. Everywhere you're not supposed to have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you, because it does matter that we're talking about female autonomy, and that includes everything from female and this is not to discredit, undervalue male autonomy. We have focused today on female autonomy, and it
Yeah.
includes climax, it includes menstruation, it includes masturbation, it includes all of the things that make your body function, your physiology, everything wrapped into beautiful, 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 beautiful skin. Um, of varying shades of just absolutely stunning humanity. Like, goodness gracious, like when you really start to think about how the human body and the human, just all of the things that we like, this the vastness of our brains and our capacity. And we've just let them into the rooms to study. We've just let them into the room legally. We've just let them into the room, into the lab to study. Like these are blips. So keep talking, keep being curious. Emily's there. I'm there. Hands are out. Talk. If it makes you uncomfortable, stay curious. Just remember that word. If I annoy you, I'm that little gnat. Don't stop being curious.
I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do as humans is to be curious and to do further investigation and research for depth of understanding, because not all species can, even like higher order species, we can't all do that. We have this capacity to understand in greater depth. And whether we choose to do that or not is a choice, but the information and the opportunity is there. And I mean, one thing I've actually led a whole workshop on curiosity as a leadership skill with my coach a few years ago, because it is so powerful. And when we are curious and we can ask questions of ourselves and others for depth of understanding, it can decrease what feels like barriers that separate us in whatever way we feel separate from others or from ourselves. So this idea of curiosity is a piece of fabric, a piece in like the overall fabric of our understanding of others and of ourselves that we really need to pull on. We really need to pay attention to asking questions, and not always, we won't always get concrete answers. We won't always get answers we like, but then we can sit with why we don't like it and how it makes us feel and have an understanding of how it challenges what we know.
Mm.
And expands our understanding. And I know that sounds really like airy fairy, but honestly, like this is how we evolve.
It's the tragic optimist that in me that sees the tragic optimist in you that says, yes, I understand that this is scary as shit.
Yep.
And it's beautiful at the same time. And they are both true at the same time. And everything else is true. So, yeah, it's, this has been fun. Let's not wait so long to do it again. I've seen some folks dip in and out, and I think my little new mixture for my little cast is going to come together pretty quickly. I just started throwing spaghetti at the screen to see what happens, and some of it's stuck. That's the way. That's the phase of life I'm in right now. FAFO, baby. Any last parting thoughts? I'm going to reverse engineer all these lives like we've just jumped a dead battery. So while I'm getting all that set up, do you have like anything left that you want to just leave everybody listening with?
I think I would just say it's safe to trust yourself.
I would agree. I would agree. Thank you for being here. Thanks everyone for listening in. I recognize how valuable time is, and that you've shared any moment in this room with me and Emily is like an absolute honor. So thank you. I look forward to visiting Out Loud again where you all can listen in. And until next time, stay well, stay curious, please. And please don't let anybody fuck with your flow.